What's up, man?
We're good on Periscope.
All right, there's a lot of echo on here, man.
How about now?
Yeah, now you're good.
I was too close to the mic.
Okay. What is up, everybody, and welcome to the divisional round recap show live. And as always, my name is DH, and I'm joined by Mr. Newman and John. Opposed to just on Facebook and YouTube this week, we're finally on Periscope as well.
Yeah, well, geez, we're all over the place. Open your closet. Open your closet. We're in there too, in that small TV you haven't used since 1985. We're on that too.
That might be a bad thing. But anyway, guys, welcome to the show. And first things first, John, like always, we'll pop up the scores real quick, and we'll take a look. As right now now there's 3 minutes left in the game, and the Packers are up by 5, but Seattle does have the ball, so this game's not quite over. We'll kind of follow this game as it goes today. How's that sound? What's going on, Matt? How's it going, bud?
Yeah, we could do almost our play-by-play.
Yeah, no. I don't know if everyone wants that, but we'll.
Listen, we're better than Joe Buck. Well, give us some sort of credit.
That we are, and Booger McFarland, I can guarantee you, I will guarantee you that if there's one thing you take from this show, it is that.
Drew, I think whoever scores the most points will wind up winning this game.
I don't know, John. I'm not so sure about that. Stranger things have happened, but anyway, guys. As always, welcome, and man, what a wild week. Yesterday, not so much. I mean, it was a lot of stuff that I kind of expected to happen. But today, man, just let's just start out with the Kansas City Houston game, because finally, John, we don't have to talk about the Texans anymore. Their haunting me is over.
You were worried a little bit there early on, I'm sure.
Worried?
I think Kansas City just scored again. I'm not sure. I got to look at the box score. They scored. Man, but talk about a rough first quarter, and then talk about an incredible second quarter. Like you take away that first quarter, and Kansas City would have won this game probably. If they didn't play bad in the first quarter, they would have won 80 to whatever. But they held my prediction. I said a lot of the week, basically take the over and the points, and it down 24-0. I'm like, what an idiot I am. And it really, at 24-0, it was really 33.5-0 with that 9.5 that I was telling everyone to give. And if you would have told me then, like, hey, you're going to wind up covering on what you said, I would have thought you're crazy.
I know this. It absolutely blew my mind. And first off, guys, just as always, if it's your first time listening, click the link that we did post here in the comments. Actually, if you click that link, you can actually call in and join the show, video or audio chat. So please call in and join the show. We'd love to have you call in and talk. Just brag about your team, disagree with us, whatever it may be. Call in, join, have some fun. But as Scott's comment right here says, Patrick Mahomes is the man. Dude,
can't argue with that.
I'm telling you, you want to talk about worried. I'm at my buddy's house while this game started, and it was right before I started to go into work, and it was just absolutely, it blew my mind. I couldn't believe what I was watching, and I was like, here's the Texans doing this shit to me again. Like they have to. I was like, they're gonna end up going to the Super Bowl just to make me have to talk about them every single week. I'm so glad I don't have to talk about this damn team after this week. Thank you, Patrick Mahomes. But no, the Chiefs, I said it also as soon as I started to see the comeback. We were live on Vintage Breaks. I was like, dude, they're going to cover the score themselves. they are going to cover the over-under themselves probably. And I said Andy Reid will not let up till he puts up 50, even if they're up by 20 or 30. He will not put his foot off the gas because after the way they started and after the things you were sending me even and the stuff that you posted about like how Andy Reid should be gone if they lose this game.
Yeah.
Just to see them come back and everything, it was a mind-blowingly incredible game, and it really showed me a lot about not only the Chiefs but Pat Mahomes, because I looked at him the whole time. I probably watched that more than I worked. Sorry, guys, but Mahomes' eyes were just the way he looked the entire game. I don't know. There was something special there.
Yeah, well, I can maybe Andy read read what I wrote, and that's what kicked it in gear. So I'm going to take a little credit for the Kansas City Chiefs victory. But all joking aside, you know what that game proved to me is two things. Obviously, they're capable of coming back from a huge hole. Now, again, it's the Texans. The Texans defense is not very good. I think that played out today. You know, you can say what you will about Jadeveon Clowney, who's in this game here, but that defense has taken a step back with his departure, and that 24-0 lead was not big enough. And the other thing it shows, which we already knew, this wasn't breaking news, but it shows that how fast this Kansas City team can score points. And that makes them very dangerous. Andy Reid, I said this before, and that's maybe why I was being harsh on him earlier. I think this team is going to be your Super Bowl champion. I picked them before the playoffs even started, so it's not like me jumping on now. But Andy Reid has never taken a team across this finish line, and that's the 10-pound, the 10,000-pound gorilla gorilla in the room. And I still think this is the year it gets it done. But man, I tell you, that first quarter, I'm like, the curse of Andy Reid is real.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It felt like it, man. And we're going to be talking a lot about it on this show. And guys, feel free, like I said, to call in. The link is right there. Feel free to just click that link and come on in. But it really felt like that, John. And we talked about it a lot last week. And we're going to talk about it a lot throughout the show, but that week off, that extra week off rust, Kansas City started out looking like, on defense, they didn't look like the team. They didn't even look as good as they did when we thought they were bad at the beginning of the year. They just looked atrocious. And it wasn't anything that they were necessarily, that the Texans were necessarily doing. It was just dumb mistakes. It was just dumb stuff that was just uncharacteristic of any good football team. And, we talked about it having a lot to do with possibly rust. And if any of these teams, these top seeds this week, were going to come out rusty after that week off. And you saw both of the AFC teams come out rusty this week. Unfortunately, for one of them, which we'll get to in a little while, they're not playing this Sunday, but the next Sunday, but the Chiefs are. So when you look at this Chiefs team now, and you watch this game, what are your biggest takeaways from this?
Well, that they're never really dead. They can score quick, and you take away a real shitty first quarter, and they're scary. And let's take a look at this and Patrick Mahomes. You can talk all about Lamar Jackson MVP, and Lamar Jackson should be MVP. Yeah. But there are certain people, I'm not really one of them, but there are certain people who believe like they shouldn't vote till after the postseason's over.
Right.
And thankfully for Lamar's probably glad that they don't do that because he might have lost it this weekend. So not really, but winning MVP is great, but getting it done in the postseason is a whole different sort of an award. Yeah. Lamar Jackson's 0-2 in the postseason. Now you can give him a pass on the first loss as a rookie, and he started the season in week 11, so he didn't have a full year under his belt. But yesterday, that you can't give him the pass. He's turned the
No,
ball over 3 times. If you look at the box score, he had a great game,
he
but
did.
those turnovers doomed him, and a lot of 3-and-outs and a lot of like non-third down conversions, a lot of the inaccurate passing, regardless of what that stat line says. And if you would have said Tennessee and Kansas City are the AFC Championship game, people would have been like, "Ah, man, that's going to be a terrible game. Kansas City probably blows them." I Kansas City wins, but I gotta be honest with you. I'm looking forward to that game. Tennessee has been, giant killers.
Yeah.
Now I don't really feel like the Patriots game was an upset, but in some people's minds, just the fact that they beat Brady and the Patriots and Belichick, a lot of people didn't see that. We
Yeah.
sort of did here,
Yeah.
but in the majority of public opinion, that was an upset. So there's the first notch on the belt. Then they did what they did yesterday, which was in most people's mind one of the bigger upsets in playoff history. And
Yeah.
now they're definitely going to be the underdog going to Kansas City. Mahomes is the real deal, and I don't think
Yeah.
Mahomes. I think the difference between and I like some people, if they want, chime in on this, guys, but I think the biggest difference between Mahomes and Lamar Jackson, I'll say it. I don't think Mahomes is capable of playing a kind of a crappy game like Lamar did yesterday with a lot of picks, a
No.
lot of turnovers and inconsistency. I think even on like Mahomes' not greatest day, he's still probably better than Lamar Jackson on his not greatest day. I think the
I com-
consistency is more with Mahomes.
I completely agree with you there. And I would like to know what you guys think. Like, who do you think I guess we would say the better quarterback is, or who would you rather have? Would you rather
Yeah.
have Mahomes or Lamar Jackson? Let us know in the comments, or like I said, click the link and call in. I mean, because I mean, it's been a legitimate question for a while now. You're looking at really the last two MVPs, something that we talked about. We thought it was set up for them to play each other in the AFC Championship. It was. Everything was set up. It was lined all the way to the door for them. But I do think you're right, and I think it comes down to, I mean, it's going to sound probably stupid to a lot of people, but I think it comes down to that it factor, that just having it and that just ability to slow the game down and never let the game become too big or more than you. And that's something that I think a lot of quarterbacks struggle with. And that's something that I think my quarterback that I love so much, Cam, struggled with for a long time. And in no way am I comparing Lamar Jackson to Cam Newton. I actually think Lamar Jackson is better than Cam Newton ever was. But I do see some issues that concern me in terms of, does he need all of these people around him to help him lead a team? As opposed to Mahomes, I know that guy is going to go out and he's going to lead my team, and I have nothing to worry about.
I think with Lamar Jackson, the problem is because he's such a superstar talent, he does too much sometimes. And when you have one guy that's that much of a focal point of your offense, in this case, it makes game planning sort of a little bit easier. You know what I mean? You can't. Mahomes distributes the ball to more people. Can he run? Yeah, but I don't think he looks to run. I think he runs when he needs to. I think Lamar looks. I think if you watch that game yesterday, he ran the ball sometimes because he wanted to, not because he needed to. And I think that's the difference. Mahomes takes what the defense gives him and burns it. And Lamar Jackson, I don't think does that all the time on a consistent basis. And he kind of, kudos to, Dean Pease from Tennessee. Now you look at the box score, you say he really didn't stop Lamar. John, what are you talking about? Why are you giving that guy a gold star? Because he did what he needed to do. They put 12 points up. I don't care what Lamar Jackson's line says he had this many
Right.
passing, and then they kept him out of the end zone,
Yeah.
and they got key stops on
Mhm.
crucial downs,
Yeah.
and that's how you win playoff games. Lamar Jackson could have 500 yards passing and 200 yards rushing. And if the score is 28-12 and Tennessee's playing next week and Baltimore's not, kudos to Dean Pease. He got the job done. And this is not his first rodeo. And it's funny, the two teams he just beat as defensive coordinator in the Patriots and now the Ravens, he used to coach for them.
Right.
So maybe he knows a little something, right? So I think now the test gets really tough. Obviously, you don't get to this point in the postseason, and you're not going to get someone who's not really playing good. And
Right.
so I'm not going to pick them, but we'll have to wait till the spread comes out. But I think this game might be closer than people might put on paper before the game starts.
Yeah, and we'll get to that here in just a little while because I want to move on to, we talked a little bit about that Kansas City game, and right now we've got a minute left in the game, 2nd and 11. Packers have the ball, up by 5.
They're in victory mode.
Yep, so. Victory mode. So the Packers are moving on now, y'all. Breaking news if you're not watching the game, but the Packers have just beaten the Seahawks, pretty much like we said, John. We killed it this week with the picks, I will say that. Yeah. But the Packers do beat the Seahawks 28-23. So now they move on. They move on to play the 49ers next week as well. So you've got the Packers, 49ers, Chiefs, and Titans as your 4 teams left.
I'm gonna pat myself on the back here.
Yeah, pat away.
I think I said it was going to be the Chiefs and the Niners.
Yeah, you did.
I'm thinking that's what it's going to be. I tell you what, I know Green Bay won today. I know I bagged on them most of the year, or most.
I'll bag on them still. I'll still bag on them.
They don't scare me. I know they won this game. I know Seattle's pretty good. Don't forget, this game's at Green Bay. Guess where next week's game is? San Francisco, and he's going up against that Niners D. They come at you at different angles. I think the Niners, I know there's a lot of, Durkee is one of them that were burying the Niners. I think it's the Chiefs and the Niners. I'll pick the Chiefs to beat the Niners in the Super Bowl.
I'm
getting ahead of myself.
Way ahead of yourself here. So let's
excited.
Talk about the games first. So
all right.
Looking at the Packers Seahawks game, I think it went exactly how we planned. It came down to pretty much it was a lower scoring game. It wasn't near as much offense as we thought. I mean, it pretty much went exactly as planned, and just like we thought, the Packers squeaked by. But let's move on now to the games that went on yesterday, and we'll talk first about, obviously, the big upset of the week. And you and I said it. We said that this could happen. We told you guys that there was a good chance that this was probably going to happen. We talked about rust last week. I knew one of these top seed teams that had a bye was going to have a problem. We said the Titans would absolutely cover, and there was a good chance they were the seed that could actually make this upset. One of our callers said the same thing. Well, for the 20th straight year, if you can believe it, the MVP of the league is not going to play in the Super Bowl, as Lamar Jackson and the Ravens lose again, which that stat blew my mind. Yeah, 20 years and MVP has not played in the Super Bowl. It's nuts. And
that's crazy.
Yeah, and it happened yet again. And that Titans team led by Derrick Henry, and I mean, it's not only Derrick Henry, it's a lot of people, but Henry obviously is the pulse, just like we said. That is a scary team, but when you look at that Baltimore game, I mean, John, what happened to the Ravens?
Lamar Jackson, inconsistent turnovers. I think I'm going to say it. I think Baltimore came out there and thought they could just throw their jersey on the field and they would win because they were who they were in the regular season.
Yeah.
And Tennessee said, you know what? fellas.
Nope.
You gotta beat us. You're just showing up here, don't get you nothing. You gotta go out here and beat us because we came here to beat you. And you've seen this before. I'm not saying with the Ravens, but with other teams where they're sort of so big of a favorite, almost double digits. And Vrabel is a great coach, and
Yes,
he's defensive coordinator, and I mean even the offensive coordinator. His name's escaping me. But how about the Derrick Henry jump pass?
beautiful.
That fooled everybody in the building.
And there was a reason for that. They'd ran the play about 10 times, which we have a caller we're going to get to in a moment. Hang on, buddy. We'll be there in just a few. But they ran a very similar form of that play about 9 or 10 times that game. It was pure power football. Everything looked like that was literally an option for him. I mean, the running out of Tannehill and stuff was just a little quote unquote trickeration by them, but they'd ran the same form of a play, just a direct handoff, beautiful power football that turned into it looked like Ja Morant going up and taking like a nice little floater in the lane or something. It was absolutely beautiful, but it was just one of those games where Tennessee looks like one of those teams, man, that you get on these runs in football. It's not unusual to see a team get into the playoffs, get hot, which Tennessee was getting very, very hot coming into the playoffs. We've talked about that ever since the playoffs were about to begin. They were coming in strong. And, really they've been playing playoff games for a while because they had to fight so hard to even get into the damn playoffs. And to think this is a team that could have missed it. But what they did was just absolutely incredible to me. But before we go any further, let's bring in our caller. And if it's who I think it is one of the men who actually called this outright last week. Scott, what's up, man?
What's happening, guys?
Not much. Well, first things first, welcome back to the show. And you called it last week. I mean, we were all kind of saying it, but you were the one that definitively said that this was going to happen.
Yeah, I had a clue it was going to happen. I'm tickled to death. I just think Lamar was getting all this hyped up in his head and everything, and I think it kind of got to him a little bit. But he is an awesome quarterback. He is, but I just think that Tennessee was the better team, and I think that Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs is going to win next week. But if anybody can beat them, I think it's Tennessee.
So, do you think they give them a game? Do you think it's a blowout? What do you see happening next week with them?
I think it's going to be a lot closer than the Texans game was today. I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I mean, I believe Henry's still going to be hard to stop. He's an awesome running back, but I think he has to wear down sometime. I mean, he's doing this week after week. Eventually, he's going to get tired. And
he's had the best running back performance in the playoffs that in history. Let's keep it in perspective. And he's just incredible. Anyone that was doubting him before the season, I think he's put those things to bed. And like Scott said, I think it's going to be a closer game than people think. And if Kansas City wants to spot Tennessee 24 points, they're going to have a harder time coming back next week if they did that than they did this week.
Yeah, I think they'll try to stop Mahomes' passing game because they don't have the running game as good as Tennessee does. And if they can stop the long ball and everything and stop Mahomes from passing, then they have a real good shot at it.
Absolutely. Well, before we let you go, man, one of our questions today, obviously, I'd like to hear your answer since it does have something to do with this game. And so, obviously, you saw Mahomes have his epic comeback today and just absolutely incredible game. And then you see Lamar Jackson have his rough game. If you're looking at starting a franchise, does that game sway you one way or the other towards Mahomes over Jackson for, let's say, you're starting your team?
Well, I think it has to. Mahomes just showed today what he was made of, that he could handle the pressure. He could handle just like Brady all the time coming back with the epic comebacks and stuff, that he has what it takes to do that. And Lamar kind of showed that he buckled under pressure a little bit. So I think I would have to go with Mahomes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I
couldn't agree with you more, man. Well, thanks so much for joining us, bud, and we'll talk to you next week, hopefully.
All right, bud. Y'all have a good week.
See you, man.
Thanks, Cap.
All
Yeah,
right.
I agree with him. And here's the thing.
Yeah.
There was some before that game, if you watch the pregame
Yeah.
of the Tennessee Baltimore game, they interviewed Lamar Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
And he said something. And I took something away from it that maybe other people did. He made a comment that he wants to be the Brady of his era. And which is great. That's great. You want to strive to be the best at your position that you can be. But where a lot of other people said, man, that's awesome. I want my quarterback to be the best. I took from it like, hey, man, you got to you got to walk before you run. You don't even have one yet. So why don't you get that one? So I think I think he's believing a little bit of his own press clippings. That doesn't mean he's not a great quarterback. He has press clippings because he is a great quarterback. He's going to have an MVP on his mantle because he's a great quarterback.
Yeah.
But I think I think he got a little bit ahead of himself. I think that was shown when the game was played, and he got a little humble pie, and Tennessee served it to him. And look, we talk about, stats. Stats are overrated.
Big time.
You look at Lamar Jackson's box score yesterday, you'd probably say, oh, they must have won the game if you didn't know the score. Look at Ryan Tannehill's 2 box scores from not only yesterday's game, but the New England game. He did not crack 100 yards passing in either game. And he's still playing well. Yeah. They don't need him to pass for 300 yards.
Right.
And right now they're just riding the Derrick Henry train to the AFC Championship game. And you say, well, now, the Tannehill's probably going to have to throw more at this point of the the tournament, the AFC, and is right. But he's had 300-yard games this year too.
Yeah,
he just hasn't had to do that yet.
Yeah.
So his quarterback rating is I believe over 100 in both games. It's just that they haven't had to throw the ball because no one can stop Derrick Henry. If it's not broke, why fix it? Why go away from something's working? And that's the amazing thing to me, Drew, on this whole Tennessee run is they're not using any other than sure, that little jump pass was very nice, but they're not using any crazy trickery. Here comes Derrick Henry right down your throat. Stop it. And everyone knows what's coming at them.
No, it's the same defense. It's the same defense for the last 4 weeks. It's stack the box. It's shade a safety over onto Brown, and you've got the passing game somewhat covered. And then you hope to contain him with a stacked box, and people just can't do it. It's absolutely amazing.
That's the amazing. Not the games that Derrick Henry's having. That's amazing on its own accord.
Yeah.
But the fact that he's doing that against stacked fronts is insane. It's insane. Yeah. It's you folks, whether you realize it or not, you are watching the single best running back performance in postseason history.
Yeah.
I'm talking about even when they were wearing leather helmets and didn't tackle very well. Yeah. This is still the greatest running back performance ever. And whether you like him or not, he's doing it. Right?
And what did we say right when the playoffs were going to start? We were talking about teams that could be sneaky good. And we both said the Titans had a chance to go, pretty far if they get in, when we were even talking about getting in because of Derrick Henry. The playoffs are a different beast. I don't care if the quarterbacks are throwing for 50,000 yards a season and wide receivers are putting up 500 yard, multiple weeks of 150 yard catches. It's just whatever. all this ridiculous passing nonsense game that we talk about. We act like the running game's dead. Well, I mean, this is showing you right here it's not. And when you get into the postseason, it shows you what you can do. I mean, that was a thorough ass whooping that the Titans put on Baltimore yesterday. A very good football team, which is going to return 19 to 22 starters. So this is a team that's not going away. No. And there are a couple, I mean, they're really, one could argue they were not having a bye week away. Honestly, I think if they played wild card weekend and stayed fresh and didn't have a chance to overthink all this shit and deal with the media for a week, I think they're probably playing in the championship game. But I think they're a couple of pieces away, and they're going to be there for a long time because this team is young and they are locked up contract wise. But they absolutely got the shit whipped out of them by the Titans. And, you know, just like the screen says, John, I mean, can the Titans ride Derrick Henry all the way to the Super Bowl? I mean, Scott just kind of said that he thinks he's might wear out. I don't think he is. I think they saved Derrick Henry up for this because he did not have a heavy workload during the year. They played it real close to even making the postseason. But
I think Kansas City's I think Baltimore's defense is probably better than Kansas City's D. I think Henry's going to have a good game next week.
So do I.
I don't think he's in for a bad game, but
no.
The question really is, can the Titans ride Henry? They can, but they're going to need more than him to get to carry him there. I think this is the week. It can't just be the Derrick Henry show. The Derrick Henry show on its own will not be enough to get him across that goal, that finish line to the Super Bowl. So I think this is the week Tannehill is going to be asked to throw the ball more, have be asked to do more. I think maybe the better question is, can Tannehill do what needs to be done to get the Titans to the Super Bowl? And if you're asking me Tannehill versus Mahomes, I don't, I think the answer's obvious. But look at these two teams, Drew. They're the opposites of one another.
Yeah.
You got a Kansas City team that their rushing game is no great shakes, but their passing game is vertical, quick, and can score often and fast. And the Titans, who are more of a running team that will grind it out, take time off the clock, and play the time of possession game. The Titans, you know who the Titans remind me of? Of another team in another sport. If you're a college basketball fan, you'll know what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. Remember the old Princeton NCAA tournament basketball teams where they just take all the time off the shot clock and don't shoot to the last 3 or 4 seconds. And then if they get their own rebound, they do it again. And the scores are like 38 to 32 final score. The Titans are the football equivalent of that. We're going to run the ball with Henry. If you don't tackle him, sure, he'll score in one play. But we're fine with 7-8 yards, taking 7-8 minutes off the clock and then scoring anyway. And now you have less time of possession to do anything in return. If we get a stop, even better, because now we get the ball back and grind it out again. That's exactly what they did to Baltimore. And it's obviously, I think it's going to be more difficult in Kansas City than it was in Baltimore. But I give them, the old saying, I give them a puncher's chance. That style of play may give Kansas City some fits. And let's be real, the Titans defense is a lot better than the Texans defense. Yeah. To me, the Texans have one of the bottom tier defenses. You can say what you will about J.J. Watt. He's a great guy. He's playing through injury, but he was a non-factor, and they don't have a lot of other guys there doing a whole heck of a lot. They gave up 50 points today after having a 24-0 lead. Not impressed. The Texans, this draft coming up, they got to go heavy defense because that was their huge bugaboo today. They don't need receivers. I think they're, you got Hopkins, Fuller when he's healthy, Kuti, running back, if you believe in Carlos Hyde. Deshaun Watson's a very good quarterback. They got to go defense. Their defense got him eliminated today. And so,
Yeah.
whether they stay around is going to be draft dependent on how they shore that defense up, free agent signings, what have you. But yeah, I tell you what, it's going to be two good games, I think.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. And that's where we'll move on to now. Obviously, you've got, like we said, you've got the Chiefs and the Titans and the 49ers and Packers. And so, John, we've kind of already talked about the AFC a little bit, so we'll slide on over to the NFC. Sorry, guys, as we near the, I know we're kind of flying through this show, but as we near the end of the season, the amount of games dwindle down. Things kind of fly through, so feel free to call in if there is anything that you have to ask. But John, when you're looking at the NFC matchup, you've got the Packers and you've got the 49ers. Now, the Packers, I've ragged on them all year. I feel like I shouldn't be doing it anymore, but for some reason, even after today, it still just didn't impress me. Maybe it was because I just didn't think much of this Seattle team. And I look at this 49ers team, and honestly, I mean, you look right there against the Vikings, that 27-10 win does not impress me that much, because it looked to me more like the Vikings choked completely than the 49ers really made them choke. And so going into this game, I don't really see, I mean, I understand why you said you're sticking with your 49ers, but I mean, honestly, either of these two teams could win this game, and I don't think either of these two teams are the best team in the NFC, but I don't know. I'm kind of leaning towards the 49ers as well. But what are you thinking when you see this game? What's your outlook for it?
I think the Niners win. You're going to think I'm nuts. I think the Niners win fairly easily. I won't call it a blowout, but I think barring turnovers, barring Jimmy G getting off the rails and turning the ball over, I think they win sort of a 28-13, 28-17 type game. I think Robert Saleh from the Niners defense coordinator, he's gonna blitz Rodgers at different angles and disguise stuff. Rodgers is not the mobile guy we once remember him as. So if they can get him off his spot, which Seattle really didn't do today, obviously, I think the 49ers can. I think this is going to be a whole different look from the Packers next week. And I'm taking the Niners in like a 28-17, 28-13 type game. I think the defense really shows up. I think they get Rodgers off the spot, get him off out of his rhythm or any rhythm that he could possibly really get in. And that's the difference. The difference today, too, Seattle's lack of a run game doomed them, really did.
Yeah.
It's the same thing that doomed Minnesota yesterday. Dalvin Cook, 4 carries for 8 yards. That ain't going to get it done. Big-time players have to have big-time games. And now, I understand the game dictated that they had to pass more late and they stopped giving them the ball.
Yeah, but you can't.
But 4 carries and 8 yards is 2 yards a carry, and that ain't going to get it done. And when they weren't scared of him anymore, that made you a one-dimensional team, and that one dimension's Kirk Cousins, and that dimension's not very scary. And so, like you said, San Fran didn't have – I thought that game would be a lot closer than that. It wasn't.
Yeah.
I think San Fran's the better team between them and Green Bay. And I even say Green Bay probably has a better rushing attack. They at least have one guy they can count on, where San Fran uses kind of a stable back. But you know what? There'd be other people that argue maybe that's better, because then you always have fresh legs rather than one guy getting wore down. So you muted your mic. Oh, there you go. But I think it's San Fran's game to lose. I think it's the only way Green Bay goes in to San Fran and can win is they got to cause some turnovers and they got to pick up those blitz schemes that they're going to get thrown at them by the Niners. And I think Rodgers could be in for a very long day.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And guys, please call in and join the show if you disagree. If you think the Packers are going to take down the 49ers, call in and let us know why, please. Because I'm with you, John. I honestly, I'm not impressed by either of the teams. Like I said, I don't think, obviously they're the teams left, and they have to be quote unquote the best. I would have liked to have seen some other teams besides the Packers. I don't think they're one of the best, but I could be wrong. I mean, they could be one of those teams that's just boringly effective, and you get all the right lucky bounces, and there you go. It's not like you don't have the talent around. They do have incredibly talented players there to be able to get things done. But I see San Francisco. What's that?
I was going to say, I think the reason you don't like San Fran, I'm sticking up for you. Let's be real. When you look, you talk about the Vikings have one of the best depth on the 53. Yeah. And I agree with you. When you look at the Niners roster, there's no, you got Nick Bosa, Jimmy G, and there's no one else that really jumps off that page. Emmanuel Sanders, even he don't scare you.
I like that kid. I like that kid Mossford, but I agree with you. They're really
they're kind of a bland. There's nothing that really like, ooh, you know what I mean? There's no one that really gets your juices flowing. But they're one of those teams that, like, superstar wise, they don't move the meter, but they're still very good. And I've been, you have to give me. I've been on them kind of early when other people were like, you were. They're not the real deal. I'm like, listen, I don't think they're going to win the Super Bowl, and I still don't, but I think they could be in it, and I picked them, and here they are, one win away, and I think it sets up well because Green Bay, I think, is going to have trouble with these matchups next week. So,
yeah. No, I completely agree with you. And you could be right. That may be because you know me enough and you know what I look for in a football team. And so that may be exactly one of the reasons. Plus, I don't have full faith in Jimmy G. I kind of see him as one of those guys that can have that Lamar Jackson type of game. And I keep expecting it from him, but he's proven me wrong, so I do expect it to be the 49ers and the Chiefs. But I actually think, and we'll talk about this a lot more on Thursday because I want to move on to another segment here in just a moment. But I actually do think the Titans are going to make – I think the AFC Championship is going to be – if there's a game I could tell you to watch the AFC Championship game. I'll say a lot more about that on Thursday, but watch that game. But John, before we wrap up today's show, man, there is no shit whip of the week this week, guys. Honestly, because there wasn't one that was deemed worthy enough by me. I looked and looked and looked, and there wasn't a damn thing. And I'm not going to sully such a prestigious award with a hit that doesn't, if there's nothing that qualifies, I'm not going to give it to you. So we're going to move on now, John, to game balls and goats. And obviously, with only 4 games this week, we'll each give out 1 game ball and one goat.
All right, who goes first?
You, my man.
All right, old guys first.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. I think it's obvious. The game, man. I wish I had 2.
I'll give you 2.
All right. These 2 are obvious ones, but they both deserve them. You got to give them to Patrick Mahomes and Derrick Henry. And I'll say a little blurb about each one. For Mahomes to be down 24-0 and keep his guys together and basically say, listen, we still got this. Let's go.
Never panicked.
Yep. He had 0 in his, that 24-0 wasn't his fault. It wasn't like he threw a pick 6 and he got strip sack fumbled. It was some special teams blunders. He kept his guys together. He came up with an epic playoff performance, 5 touchdowns, no interceptions, rally. And look at that final score. You wouldn't even have known that Houston, if you didn't watch that game, you had no idea Houston had a 24-0
They hit the
lead.
over under by themselves.
At halftime.
Well, I'm saying the Chiefs hit it themselves. It was 51. It was 51 and they hit it. So it's just it was absurd. I agree with you completely.
That one's a no-brainer. And I that would have been my first one, and then I would have felt bad that I didn't give one to Derrick Henry. And we talked about this plenty. I'll just say this. Think about what he's doing, how great that is as it is, and then the fact that he's doing that against stacked fronts. What's that? That's just insane. That's insane.
It is, and that's what I was saying earlier. Is watch. I urge you guys to please watch some film of some of his runs, not the highlights, the big touchdown runs and everything. Watch a lot of his 5 to 8 yard runs he had in that game. They were power formation. Watch what the defense is doing. Literally, all they're doing is just having AJ Brown played man to man. A safety shaded to the side, and everything else is stacked in the box after Henry. They know exactly what's going on, and he repeatedly does this to team after team after team. Like John said, it is all-time legendary stuff. People do not understand what they're watching because it's all about passing these days, and we don't talk enough about the run. But what he's doing is absolutely incredible. So those are 2 excellent game balls, John, and I'm going to take 2 myself then. And my first game ball, I'm going to be on the same team as Pat Mahomes, but I'm going to go with really the man that you texted me earlier in the first quarter and said if he loses this game, he should be fired, Andy Reid. He should keep the ball. That man.
Somebody's trying to stay on the Andy Reid Christmas card list.
Yeah, hey, if he wants to put me on it, that's cool. I'd like to be on it to begin with. You got to give him credit, though.
No, you do.
Because for the simple fact that even when they were down, even when it was 24-0, all right, Baltimore goes down yesterday. They run the ball. I mean, I think they passed the ball 39 times in the second half. They completely abandoned the run. We talked about what Minnesota did. It's a coaching meltdown on both sides. Beyond Lamar Jackson's bad performance, Harbaugh and that offensive coordinator over in Baltimore completely fucked up yesterday. I don't care if Ingram's hurt. You have to use your backups and establish some sort of run to do play action to get back in the fucking game. Like, you just have to. And those were two complete coaching meltdowns. And what I saw from Andy Reid is someone that did not melt down. I saw someone that stayed cool, stayed composed, knew the players he had on his team, saw that Kelsey was on fire, Mahomes was in the zone, that he knew that they could come back in this game. I don't think there was ever a doubt in that team's mind at all. I never saw it on any of their faces. I never saw panic. And this is a young team for the most part. So I give Andy Reid a ton of credit, because of what they did today and not melting down when a lot of other coaches this weekend did, but also because he's having to deal with all the, it's postseason Andy, yada, yada, yada. It's a monkey off his back. So I've got to give my first game ball to Andy Reid. Now, go right ahead.
Well, I was gonna agree. I know I'm a little bit critical of him sometimes, but I gotta agree with you. And real quick, if you watch that Ravens game, that sideline, they even reported it. I forgot who the sideline reporter was, but they went down to him, and the sideline reporter says they're shell shocked down here. You could hear a pin drop. They were like a boxer who got hit with a left hook and were stunned and out on their feet. That didn't happen in Kansas City today. You hit it right on the head. They acted like, hey, everything's fine, let's go. And we saw what the end result was. So as much as I pick on them, kudos to Andy Reid today for getting it done.
Yeah. No, that's why he gets my first game ball. And my second game ball, really, I'm sticking on the same team, and that's Travis Kelce. I said it earlier, the dude was just an absolute monster. And we talked about how Mahomes can kind of have his choice of who he goes to. Any of these guys could have a big game. We said Kelce'd probably have one regardless, but just absolutely amazing what the way Kelce played today, just dominated. A decent defense, is not by any means a slouch covering them, and they were playing so good at the beginning, and he played just so lights out that you got to give it to Kelce, in my opinion. Since Mahomes is already gone.
Yeah, I think he might have answered that the question that everyone likes to ask: who's the better tight end, Travis Kelce or George Kittle? And right now, it looks like Travis Kelce's the answer to that question.
And it looks like we might get to find out, though. I mean, hey.
Yeah, I think that. Well, it's my pick for what I think the Super Bowl matchup's going to be. So,
all right, so those are our game balls, but there were plenty of goats this week. So let's drop in our goat, and you can have one or two. Take a pick, man.
All right, I'll find two. The first one that comes to mind, I know it's not completely his fault, but if you want, we talk about Derrick Henry being a big-time back in the big-time games and big-time positions. You got to give negatives too, and so it's got to be Dalvin Cook, man. Just when, it just seemed like we were starting to talk. He was mentioned for MVP, and he sort of kind of hit that wall.
Oh,
he started. I don't know if he got tired. Yeah, I don't know if he got tired. That they say that at that point in the season, your legs get tired, but the performance went down, and it was way down, obviously, in the division round game against the Niners. And without him, Minnesota had no chance. And you got to play better than that. And my second one, people can think I'm nuts because you look at the box score and you think he played well. But I'm putting Lamar Jackson as my second guy. Take away the stats. 3 turnovers, looked out of rhythm, ran the ball when he didn't need to. When there was guys open, they showed numerous replays where he just tucked the ball and hit a lane, and there was a receiver, whether it be Brown or Snead, with their hands up, and he just showed to play a little bit. Yeah. There was a little hero ball in him yesterday, and I think that hero ball, was great for the box score and great for his stat sheet. It was not great for the outcome of the game. And, you saw him, too, on the sideline on a 3-and-out or a drive that stalled, and he went in there and he threw his helmet, he went on the bench, and he sulked. He wasn't a leader. It wasn't like these veteran quarterbacks that would rally their offense on the sideline, clap their hands, and say, come on, let's go. We're all right. He literally sat there with a sourpuss, and I think it trickled down to the rest of the team. They followed his lead. They packed it in, and that was your ball game. And this is why Tennessee is playing next weekend. So it's a crazy. Someone say, how can a guy with that kind of stat line be your GOAT? Watch the game. Sometimes the box scores do not tell you the story. There's the perfect example of such. Is he played? He'd tell you, if he was honest, he'd tell you himself, I played bad. So
yeah. And as Scott's comment says, and that's what we were talking about last week, I think it hurt him sitting out week 17. I completely agree with that, Scott. We were mentioning that before. And John, I completely agree with both of your picks. Cook absolutely disappeared once he hit a plateau. I think he actually took a week off towards the end of the year, didn't he? Week 16, I believe he took off. Yeah. I don't know if there's been a little bit more lingering issues than we thought. I don't necessarily know everything that's been going on there, but I do know that he looks like a completely different running back. But Lamar Jackson, dead on, and it's a lot of things that I said, man. He didn't look. You look at Mahomes on the sideline, cool, composed, everything. Now, whether that has to do with everything with coaching too, I don't know. But Baltimore, we've been praising their coaching all year. They've never looked as out of sync as they did yesterday. It's like you said. It's like they came in, put the jersey on, thought they were just supposed to play Kansas City next week, and then just got so shocked by what was going on that they did not know what to do. And it was very, very odd to me. And I don't care what a stat sheet says. I don't care what your stat line is. If you look like, I'm going by the eye test and what I see on the field, and what I saw on the field and on the sidelines from Lamar Jackson was just like you said, a quarterback that was it was a deer in headlights and someone that just could not get everything together. And let me make myself perfectly clear. There's a lot of players on Baltimore that deserve a lot of blame. on this. This was not all Lamar Jackson by any means. Just like a lot of this stuff on Kansas City today when they went down wasn't on Mahomes. A lot of this stuff and a lot of Lamar's issues were not all on Lamar Jackson. But you're the quarterback, you're the leader, like you said, running on some plays that he shouldn't have, taking some very odd, not going through your progressions as much once you got behind. With your coaching staff abandons the run game, you've got to have a little bit of control to call some audibles to get that run game going. You've got to take it over yourself and figure out if your coaching staff isn't going to help you and be there for you. You've got to be able to figure out how to control it yourself. And I think he just let the game get away from him. So 100% agree with you on him. And that's why I went on that little rant, because he would be number one on my list as well. But number two on my list this week was actually on the same team as Dalvin Cook. But my other GOAT is absolutely 110% Kirk Cousins. Dude, it's just a recurring theme. He's one of those guys that he reminds me a lot of growing up. The Super Bowl I went to when I was a little kid was Dallas versus Buffalo Part 2, and I got to go see Jim Kelly and the Bills lose the second time to the Cowboys in Atlanta. And I remember watching those Bills teams growing up, and even as a kid, I thought to myself, man, that Jim Kelly's really good, but he can't really ever, he just never has enough to get past what he needs. And I don't think Kirk Cousins is near as good as Jim Kelly was. I'm not saying that, but it reminds me of that type where Kirk Cousins is a good quarterback. He's going to have his great games. He's going to go on his good streaks. But when you need him and when you need to count on him, this type of shit happens. And this was abysmal yesterday. Just looked awful. I saw you want to talk about running when you don't need to. Kirk Cousins is damn scrambling for his fucking life back there in the backfield. 3 different times. It's 3rd and short. He's got 7 yards of room to easily you could have ran the 5 to 7 yards when you only needed 2. And instead of lunging forward and maybe possibly taking a hit, he rolls around, throws it out of bounds, throws some bullshit ball at someone's leg to act like he was trying to make a completion just to get rid of the ball, instead of just attempting to get 2 or 3 yards on 3rd and 2 in a playoff game. It was, I don't know. It was shocking to me. I thought this Minnesota team had turned a corner. I thought that Cousins had turned a corner. You know how high I'd been on them this year, even despite Cousins and everything I'm saying about him right now. I was very high on him, but just this was a massive, massive letdown for me. And so he's actually my number 1 GOAT of the week.
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head, Drew. I think he's a good quarterback, but this is the NFL. I don't know if a good quarterback gets you to the Super Bowl anymore. I think maybe back in the 80s when there was less good quarterbacks, the fact that you had one, you could ride a good quarterback to the Super Bowl. But now there's a lot of good quarterbacks. And then you have another level called very good quarterbacks. And then you have that next and last level, which is that elite type quarterbacks, your Patrick Mahomes and those guys. And so he's good, but I don't think good is good enough anymore. And so it's an interesting question. What do the Vikings do?
Yeah.
He's got a big contract here. He's not – listen, let's look at that. You look at that offense, Drew. You said this yourself. He's not lacking weapons, man. Stephon Diggs, no. Adam Thielen, Dalvin Cook. So it's not like Minnesota can say, all right, let's get him some guys.
No.
It's our bad. We didn't draft well. He's got guys. So what do you do here now? It's obviously a quarterback issue. And you're in that contract. Who's going to take that contract? And even if you find someone to take that contract, who are you replacing him with? You can't just plug anyone in there. That's not the answer. So they're in a really tough spot here.
It's also a team built for him, which is what's even worse. They spent so much money on him that they built a team for him around him.
Yeah, I'm curious. This will be one of those stories. Obviously being an NFL fan, I'll be watching it anyway. But I'm going to be curious. How does Minnesota transition to whoever this next guy might be? How fast does it happen? Who is it? How does this all shake down? I don't think it's they're going to get anyone to take his contract. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
Yeah.
And even if they did, who do you get? Just
Phillip
because
Rivers,
just because he's not the guy. I think we can all agree on that. Doesn't mean by getting rid of not the guy, you get the guy. That's not how this works. You might get another not the guy. So how, where do they go? How do they handle the situation? The fans
I think they know it. I think they know it. I think they have to ride it out, and I think the fans have to get ready that you have to deal with it, and you have to hope. And I think this is what the Giants general managers and coaches are riding on. They're praying that he goes on one of his hot streaks in the postseason. One of these years they get him. They're hoping they can get there, and they're hoping that the Cousins that can come out here for a month or 2 months and show you that he'll put up MVP numbers and look like damn Brett Favre out there some weeks. They want that to come out for 3 weeks in the postseason. And I think that's what they're hedging their bets on, because like you said, the contract's abysmal. The team's built for him. If they move him at all, you can't cut him or anything. The dead money would destroy him. No one's going to take the contract. You'd even have to fill him in. You get rid of him, you're basically going full rebuild. You have to stick it out at this point. I just don't know. I mean, you've got one of the best running backs in the league at Dalvin Cook. You have a decent offensive line. You've got some wide receivers. I'd maybe get one more, and maybe beef up the offensive line and tight end if there's any offensive holes.
That Laquan Treadwell pick did not tread well.
No, it did not.
So I thought he was going to be a lot better than obviously he turned out to be.
Yeah.
And you might be right. They probably do need another receiver. That's probably somewhere they go in the draft. But that's not why Kirk Cousins didn't play well. It's not the third receiver they don't have. And here's the thing.
No.
There was talk that Mike Zimmer's job was in jeopardy before they beat New Orleans. So then they beat New Orleans. That talk sort of settled out. Then they looked terrible versus. Can you imagine if the Vikings front office decides like they want to take a shot at, if they could get a Lincoln Riley or one of those hot young guys and say, you know what, we're going to throw Zimmer away. We don't think he's the guy that can get us. He's a good coach, but we're going to take a shot on a young flyer that might be an eventual great coach.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be shocked. I'm not saying it happens, but sort of a prop bet. In another week or two, you might hear rumblings or something that the Vikings and Zimmer have mutually agreed to part.
Well, I think if that's going to happen, it's going to happen in the next week. It'll be well under 2 weeks because they're going to want this stuff figured out for the draft. I mean, there's no time to lose in the NFL now. Their draft. That's why I think all these coaching changes and all these coaching voids. I mean, teams are Cleveland was scrambling. Every head coaching slot's filled unless he gets fired. Yeah. Unless the postseason slot's fired, every head coaching slot's filled. That's absurd compared to 10 years ago. Coaches this would stretch out till a month before the draft, and that's because draft prep has started. And so, I mean, if you're going to do it, it's going to happen fast. But I honestly, Minnesota, the Cousins contract shocked everybody because Minnesota was never the type of team to shell out that type of money, especially not that type of guaranteed money. And that I don't know how much after doing as much guaranteed money as they had. I think they pretty much shored up their big guaranteed money for a long time. I don't know if they can afford the guaranteed money to bring anyone else in that you would need, that type of stuff. I honestly think this is either you ride it out, or if you fire Zimmer, you go with a much smaller replacement, or you go with, unless you can get one of those big guys. I don't know what the answer is in Minnesota, but I do know that this is 3 years in a row where you had a golden opportunity to be in the Super Bowl. The road was paved for you, and you just collapsed.
And you know what? If Zimmer was to be gone, let's say this week or next, I think it's going to be worded as mutually decided. It won't be like firing. The two sides met and have agreed to part company at this time. So it'll allow him to save face, kind of like they came together and just agreed this was best for all parties involved. He won't have to say he got fired. We agreed to part company, and I'm available for another team, either as a defensive coordinator or head coach. I'll tell you, I take him in a heartbeat as a DC in Pittsburgh, and I don't foresee that happening, but I like the dream. Because I'm not a big Keith Butler guy, but it'd be interesting. Maybe it might be where he almost wants out because he kind of feels like with Kirk Cousins, he's not going to get where he needs to be. He's going to wind up getting fired because of Kirk Cousins. Maybe he kind of like says, "Hey, I want to get out of here before I get fired. Let's talk about this and just part. Let's come up with a mutual parting away." So and that'll be interesting to keep an eye on the next week or two to see if anything comes of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one thing's for sure is we will definitely be keeping an eye on it. But John, look, we got 2 weeks left of football. Like we said, we aren't going to have an off season, so we'll be around the entire time. But hope you guys have a good week and have enjoyed the show. And make sure to tune in this coming Thursday for our picks and preview show for, the AFC and the NFC championship. So, John, another awesome week of football, another awesome week of the show. Thanks so much for joining me, man.
Yeah, this is a riot. It's the next best thing to watching the games.
Absolutely. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us. Have a great week at work and all that jazz, and we'll see you Thursday.